So why does marriage fail? Pretty big question with a pretty simple answer. So often people say, well, what happened with your marriage? What happened to their marriage? What went wrong? And doesn't seem like it is ever any one thing. Symptomatically, there are so many things, so many factors that build up over time. And it's not just infidelity, it's not just anger issues, it's not just incompatibility. It all still boils down to what I see as the one thought behind all emotional pain. It's a conditional thought, the condition, I need this to be blank. Remember that in English class where we learned about conditional statements would be if then, if only blank, then I would be happy, if only then. So the mind comes up with those all the time. It looks at something and it says, if only you were this way, then I would be feeling better right now. If only you would take out the trash, then I'd be happy. If only you would hug me a few seconds longer. If only, it's just a condition generator. And I talk so much about moving into unconditional connection to self, others, and life. Unconditional thriving, in fact, because it is really just the absence of those conditions. And it turns out that it's super easy to help those conditions fall away when we have a simple way to question them. But why do we create the conditions to start with? Well, I think it really boils down to the way our brains are wired and to our survival instincts. So our brains are, it's a what's that called? Back and forth. There's just two things. I've lost the word. Oh, well, it's like an on-off switch, like electricity. So the brain is a polarized instrument. I'll get the word in a minute. But sort of, good, bad, fat, thin, smart, dumb. It wants to label things. That's our survival instinct, where we had to label, well, that's going to hurt me. That's something I can eat. That's something I can have sex with. The brain is just wired to label for survival and to also have sort of a worst case approach to things. It's wired with a negative bias so that it's scanning the environment for what could go wrong. How do we need to take care of ourselves? What do I need to be ready to do next? And that gets applied to the marriage. And what happens is, if there's only this much energy within the container of the marriage, and there's this polarized nature of our brains, even if we start out as pretty much the similar personality types, we're going to start kind of looking at that person and saying, well, you're that way, and that's a way that I've already decided I don't want to be, and we've developed shame around that. So we've either stuffed that in ourselves or we've denied it completely. We don't even know that we have it, but we spot it in other people and it drives us crazy. The reasons we did that to start with go back to, childhood programming, and we talk about that in other videos. But so then the other person is doing the same, and pretty soon we're looking at them and saying, well, you're super different than me. I need you to be more like me, but in some ways, we really don't want them to, because we also don't always like all the things about ourselves. But, it turns out that we come further and further and further apart the more this finger pointing goes on. And it's like, well, I'll take up all the quiet, sullen energy in the relationship, which leaves, the really demanding, talkative, emotional energy in the relationship, rather than both people really have both propensities, but they get over in their corners and they say, you're that and you're that, and I'm going to take up all that energy, which leaves all that energy. So it's not hopeless at all. In fact, it's wired in such a perfect way so that we can use those polarities to evolve ourselves back to the center, to become a whole person, to become a couple that really works as a team, that, can turn on, do their own life and then come back together. And it's not like that where they're leaning on each other, and if something happens, the other one falls. They're both standing up straight. They're both on kind of their side of the street. Now, how we get to that, though, is by using the symmetry in whatever triggers you about the other person. Whatever upsets you holds within it the key to your direct path to peace in the moment and self-evolution over time, so that you're just not very triggered anymore. Because what happens if you can harvest the thinking, what you're thinking about them is they're so this, or I need them to that. And whatever that is, it turns out when you really go into it, you will find examples of how you're that way. You're even more that way lots of times in that situation, but you were just blind to it. And there's a lot of reasons you're blind to it. We won't go into that now, but you are blind to it in that moment. You're only seeing what they're doing and feeling like a victim of their behavior. But in fact, you're projecting onto them the very way that you see the world, the very way that you already treat yourself. And so you're blind to the ways that you treat them that way. And that, in fact, you don't need them to change in order to be happy. You usually just need yourself to change. And you can't just sit around and talk about that. Oh yeah, I need to be more, and legislate that. We all know those good intentions. There's something that happens when we evolve the thinking, so that when we were little, we were in the middle, and then something happened where we believed the thought, something's wrong with me. In order to get loved, I need to be this and I need to do that. And I need to project. And the mind came up with these, there's something wrong with me, and it's that way, and they're that way, and here's what I need to do. And that keeps getting reflected to us throughout our lives, in both the good things, in the good we see in people is what we have, but also in the things that push our buttons and drive us crazy. They are really just the perfect reflection of what we came to believe that's still driving the bus on this really subconscious level. So they'll show up in ways that we don't recognize how that's triggering us. So you can, when you wake yourself up to questioning that, this reflection helps you realize that that thought was never true to start with. It was a childhood script. You've been playing it out, entangled with others for your survival or your sort of like validation all this time. And it turns out it's really easy to see through that thinking once you have this way of doing it. I didn't know how before, and I'm afraid my marriage was the casualty of that, but it's very learnable, and I learned it since. And in fact, in the next relationship, it really, it did a lot to make things clear for me and disentangled. And at that point, I also decided I still needed to be with myself more, that in some ways I almost wasn't really ready, those littlest parts of me, to have that in my face so closely. But anyway, so we've got it here. We've got it. I have seen marriages turn around, wow, like crazy in this work with my clients. And there are times when the best way to turn around is to leave and change the nature of that relationship so that you're either not living together or not married. But that's so much easier once you've done this work on your own stinking thinking, and usually that's enough to change the dynamics and see the other person's innocence and really reconnect both to yourself and them unconditionally by debunking those original conditions that the mind created. So that's my take on why marriages fail. Yes, there's a lot more where that came from, and we really know what to do with relationship issues by using these very simple, very efficient processes. So, all right, take care. Best of luck with relationships, but they are your greatest teacher. Take care.